And so we have a very dangerous future lying just around the corner. And woe unto a people who have eyes but cannot see. Woe unto a people who have ears but they cannot hear. Woe unto a people who have hearts but they cannot understand. The grave danger which is around the corner, Allah says of such people, who have eyes but they can't see, who have ears but they can't hear, who have hearts but they cannot understand. He says of such people, Ulaika kal an'am, they're just like cattle. Bal hum adall, rather they're worse than cattle, they're more misguided than cattle. How did this happen to us? What is the plan and the strategy of the enemy who has brought this upon us? When did this all start? Paper money started essentially like a check. You write a check, huh? You want a BMW, you write a check for the BMW. Provided, of course, that you have money in the account, then you can get the BMW, write a check. But you took the BMW and you're driving down the road, and when they cash the check, you got no money in your account. This is called fraud. You'll be arrested, put in jail. You're writing a check and it cannot be cashed because you have no money in your account. That's fraud. This check will have validity if the check can be cashed for value. Then it would be halal. This is how paper money started. It started in Britain, the island of Tamim Dari. Yes, the British created something called the Bank of England in the 17th century. And towards the end of the 17th century, the Bank of England issued the first paper money. And I've seen it myself. The picture of it is written exactly like a check. So long as this check, this currency now, let's use this word, so long as this currency was redeemable, meaning you could cash it, you could get the gold for it, it was halal. But guess what? Every businessman knows this. A man comes to your shop or to your store to buy goods. Would you accept a check from him without knowing him? No! He has to be a man whose character, whose integrity, and whose record is established. Or someone has to vouch for him. Okay? Then we can accept a check from him. Or, the other alternative, we must know who he is, so that if the check cannot be cashed, we send the police for him. And when they send police for him, he'll be arrested and put in jail. Yes, then we can accept a check from you. But those who are now issuing the checks, are they a people we can trust? No. These are the people who are now empowered with a power which is strange and mysterious, and they use this power for blatant oppression and aggression. Are these the people you can do business with? They send their armies and they colonize the rest of the world, and then they rape mankind of their resources, yeah, with the hearts of beasts. Yeah. If ever there was a European who didn't have the heart of a beast, he could never make it to the top. No. He will never become part of government. He will never be in charge of the armed forces. This decent man who has a human heart, he will never make it to the top. The European civilization is now taken over by people who now control it. and who have the hearts of beasts. And I have recognized them in previous lectures. You're dealing with Gog and Magog now. Stage 2 occurred after the end of the Second World War. The European powers who were victorious, they now called an international monetary conference and invited the rest of the world to attend. It was held in a place in upstate New York called Bretton Woods. And there were Muslim countries present. Saudi Arabia was there. It was held in 1944. And out of the negotiations of Bretton Woods emerged the Bretton Woods Agreement, which created a new international monetary system. Two important things were agreed upon at Bretton Woods. Number one, prepare yourself for it. Not all checks can be cashed, only one check. Which one? The US dollar. Only this currency can be redeemed for gold at $35 an ounce. So this is halal. But all the rest of the paper money in the world are now checks which cannot be cashed. You could exchange them for the US dollar, check for check, but you cannot cash them. That's the first agreement at Bretton Woods. And so now it's plain, this system is 99% haram, only 1% halal. That is the US dollar, which the US government has promised that if you come with US dollars, we will convert it for you to gold at $35 an ounce. We gave our word to you, and we will keep our word, and we put it on the US dollar. Did you see it? In God we trust. Ever saw it? The second thing that came out of the Bretton Woods Agreement was that not every individual can take his US dollars to have it converted into gold, redeemed. No. Only governments, only central banks can do it, not individuals. So are we not a part of the market? This system is now 99.9% haram. It is only 0.1% halal, meaning that a government can go to the United States and say, here are US dollars that we have, we want you to redeem it for gold at $35 an ounce. You gave your word, now keep your word. So 0.1% halal. This is the Bretton Woods Agreement. And it lasted from 1944 until 1971. Some of you, I believe, must have been born already by 1971. In 1971, September 1971, the British government, Island of Tamimudari, the British government came in one Friday evening to Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam is the US government, and said, Uncle Sam, we got $3 billion US dollars here. We want to cash these checks. You promised on the Bretton Woods, you promised to do it. $3 billion US dollars to be redeemed into gold at $35 an ounce. Suddenly, Richard Nixon couldn't digest his food anymore. Why? Because he had written more checks than he had money in his account. If I did that, or Sheikh Faiz did that, they would arrest us. But who can arrest Uncle Sam? If he gave the gold to Britain, then Monday morning, who is going to be at the front of the line? Saudi Arabia? Because they got a mountain of checks for all the oil they've been selling. And they will say, if the British wanted the gold, we better go and do it quickly. But Uncle Sam didn't have the gold to redeem all that US dollars. So Uncle Sam retired to Camp David, Richard Nixon. And then on Sunday, he addressed the world and he said, we gave our word, but we don't have to keep it. And so the Bretton Woods Agreement collapsed in September 1971. After the collapse of the Bretton Woods Agreement, the world of paper money is now 100% haram. Surely the world of Islam would recognize that. Surely the ulama of the world of Islam would recognize that. But no, it was not to be. Illa masha'Allah. It was not to be. Between 1971 and 1973, an ominous thing was happening. From $35 to an ounce, it started to move to 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. And by 1973, it had reached 40. In October 1973, the war took place with Israel. And King Faisal, for whom we always say rahimahullah, imposed an oil boycott on the United States. You remember? And then all the Arab oil producing states, they also joined in the oil boycott. Guess what happened to the US dollar? It collapsed by 400% overnight. From 40 to 160. Why? I ask this question, why? Because of an oil boycott. Why should this happen? And then on the 15th of January 1980, the same thing happened again. Iran had had a revolution and the Iranian people took control of their oil. More than that, they were threatening to export their revolution into the Gulf, where the oil is located. And then at the end of December 1979, the then Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan and took over the country. And Wall Street knew the reason why. Wall Street knew that the Soviet Union has done this because of fear of the threat posed by the revolution in Iran. And so Wall Street had their greatest fears confirmed. And on the 15th of January 1980, the US dollar collapsed to $850 to an ounce of gold. So we ask the question, why did this happen? There was no economic cause to explain it. None. The US economy was the largest economy in the world. Oil accounted for only 4% of the US economy. And the United States had enough oil underground to meet most of its own domestic needs. The United States preferred to keep its oil underground and get oil from Saudi Arabia and other countries, because this oil which was kept underground became a strategic reserve. And the oil that they got from Saudi Arabia was free of charge. You didn't have to pay for it. Did you hear that? Huh? Did you hear that? It was free. All that Uncle Sam has to do was to write checks that nobody could cash. One BMW, please, here's the check. Can I have a Mercedes, please, here's the check. I have no money in my account. Or even if I have money in my account, you can't cash it. So all I'm doing is writing checks. And that's how they're buying the Saudi oil, which cannot be redeemed. They're just like checks which cannot be cashed. Well, then why did the US dollar collapse? There's only one answer. Only one answer. Only one. And that is that Wall Street knew what even our distinguished and respected ulama did not know. Wall Street knew that this entire international monetary system was fraudulent, batil, and that it would collapse one day. And they thought that that day had come. In 73 and again in 80. And so a Wall Street banker would not ask, would the international monetary system ever collapse? No, he wouldn't ask that question. What's the question he would ask? When would it collapse? That's what he would ask. Since 1980, something strange has been happening. And that is that there has not been any more collapses. The US dollar, in relationship to gold, has remained fairly stable for 22 years now. The price of the US dollar, the value of the US dollar in relation to gold, has been moving between, say, $250 and $400, up and down, okay? But no collapse. Why is this happening? The answer is, those who have constructed this system, those who are preparing to bring down this system, and to then take absolute control of the world of money as part of the means through which they will now rule the world. Rule the world. And the golden age will be said to have come back again. And so the Messiah must be here. They're the ones. For that subject, of course, please read this book, Jerusalem in the Quran. It will explain that subject. What they did was to control the price of gold. Can you control the price of a commodity? Yes. If you can establish what is called a monopoly, then you can control the price of a commodity. The Prophet ﷺ cursed the one who establishes a monopoly. In the late 19th century, when diamonds were discovered in southern Africa, the Jews were behind the diamond industry, the European Jews. And they wanted to take control of the diamonds, and they wanted to maintain the high price so that the price would not lower. So what they did, they used, of course, the British as the front man, so the Jewish face would not be up front. His name was Cecil John Rhodes. Cecil John Rhodes. And using Cecil John Rhodes, of course the Jew is behind him, Alfred Beat is the Jew behind him, and behind Alfred Beat is Lord Rothschild in Europe, the Jewish banker. What they did was to buy out all the other diamond mines, and those which could not be bought out, they got them to come together in one amalgamated company, which was called De Beers Consolidated. And once they did that, they were able to maintain stability in the price of diamonds at the level that would give them the maximum return. And so this is what has been happening to gold. Not for the purpose of keeping the price high, no. For the purpose of keeping the system from collapsing. We don't want it to collapse on its own. We want to bring it down when it will be in the interest of the state of Israel. That's where we are today, brothers and sisters. This is the history of what has happened since the first paper money was issued. The attack on America on September the 11th is the opening rounds. I have warned you time and again. The opening rounds of the countdown which will witness the transfer of power from one ruling state to another, from the United States of America to the state of Israel. How does Imran Hosein know this? Where does he get this knowledge? Brother, the hadith is there. We've used it as the cover of this book. Sure, you could differ with me.